مادرم سنگی صبوری بود. وقتی پدرم کشتی کوچک اندیشه‌اش را بادبان می افراشت و بر شطی سرخی خشم می راند، مادرم به ساحل صبر پناه می برد و اشکهایش را با گوشه های چادرش پاک می کرد و با خدا پیوند می یافت. پدرم مردی عجیبی بود. پدرم وقتی دستار غرورش را بر سر می بست فکر می کرد که آفتاب کبوتری سپیدی است که از شانه های بلندی او پرواز می کند و فکر می کرد که می تواند روشنی را برای مادرم جیره بندی کند و فکر می کرد که ما مهره رنگینی است که می تواند آن را بر سر یال اسب سمندش بیاویزد. پدرم مردی عجیبی بود. پدرم وقتی مرا به حضور می خواند، من فاجعه را در چند قدمی خیش می دیدم و کلمه ها گنجشکان هراس‌آلودی بودند که از باغچه خزان زده ذهنم کوچ می کردند و ترس جامعه چرکینی بود که چهره اصلیم را از من می گرفت. پدرم وقتی مرا به حضور می خواند، خون تکلم در رگهای سرخ زبانم از حرکت می ایستاد و آنگاه قلب مادرم بلوری روشنی بود که در عمق دره تاریکی رها می گشت و مادرم ویرانی خود را در آینه های شکسته اضطراب تماشا می کرد و منتظر حادثه می ماند. پدرم مردی عجیب. پدرم وقتی دستار غرورش را بر سر می بست، در چار دیوار کوچک خانه ما امپراتوری کوچک او آغاز می گشت و آنگاه آزادی را که من بودم و زندگی را که مادرم بود شلاق می زد و به زنجیر می بست. روان مادر من شاد که با این حال خدا را شکر می کرد و در حق پدرم می گفت خدا سایه او را از سر ما کم نکند. The translation is by Professor Shawali Ahmadi, but I have touched to a great extent his translation. The title is Large Picture, Small Mirror. My mother was from the green tribe of grace. She spoke the language of the people of paradise. She wore a silky scarf of faith. Her heart resembled God's throne and was as large as the divine truth. I heard God's voice through her heartbeats and knew that God was in our house. Without anyone being aware, the sun rose from the east of my mother's voice. My mother was from the green tribe of grace. Whenever she approached me, in her little footprints, little windows appeared, through which I could see the green gardens of paradise and pick the apple of my good fortune from its trees. My mother was from the green tribe of grace. She wore a silky scarf of faith. Her forehead seemed like a first stanza of God's loveliest psalm, which I hummed every day with affection. And then, filled of faith, I realized what is meant by God's verse. My mother was from the green tribe of grace. She spoke the language of the people of paradise, patiently waited for the little white dove to wash her wings every dawn in the purest fountains of paradise, arriving from the blessed land of the Quran to recite the message of God for my mother. My mother was from the green tribe of grace. The history of her genealogy fits only the son's memory. I heard it from the sun. When she was born, her father, wallowing in destitute, was lamenting the collapse of his tall and straight posture. I learned it from the sun. My mother, all her life, looked for the word smile. With piety and faith, she fingered the pages of the book of her life, alas, and to the last breath of her life, she could not commit to memory the joyous meaning of a smile. My mother knew crying. She would construct thousands of words from the root word to cry. My mother, in 1,000 ways, had committed to memory the bitter taste of crying in the dark recesses of her eyes' mind. In my mother's eyes, two perfect mirrors of the manifestations of God's glory possessed excellent memory. My mother did not know of spring. Her life was like an ant trail, making its way through the mountains of misery, where, during all 4 seasons, the clouds of insults dumped the rains of indignity and abuse upon her. And my mother would gather countless bouquets of misfortune daily. My mother was the stone of patience. Whenever my father sailed the little ship of his agitated mind on the scarlet waves of fury, my mother would take refuge in the shores of patience. Wiping her tears with the corners of her headscarf, she sought God's communion. My father was a peculiar man. Whenever he put the turban of his pride, he thought that the sun was a mere little white pigeon, which flew from the heights of his shoulder. He thought he could ration the sunlight for my mother. And the moon, for him, was a colorful ornament he could simply hang from the mane of his stallion. My father was a peculiar man. Whenever he summoned me, I could smell disaster all around me. And words were like scared sparrows which flew away from the autumn-ridden fields of my mind. And fear was a filthy garment which hid my real face from me. Whenever my father summoned me, the blood of speech would freeze, the red veins of my tongue, in the red veins of my tongue. In that moment, my mother's heart, like a glowing crystal, would sink in the depth of darkness. My mother would see her loss in the broken mirror of fear and wait a catastrophe. My father was a peculiar man. Whenever he put on the turban of his pride, within 4 walls of our little house, where his little empire began, he would lash it freedom, which was I, and life, which was my mother, tying us in chains. Blessed be the soul of my mother, who thanked God in such moments and would murmur in prayer, "May God never take his shadow off our heads." Thank you.